Thank you very much indeed. I'm Penny Tranter from the Met Office, and what I would like to talk to you today about is winter weather. So, first of all, we are going to be talking about the winter climate that we see across London. And the place that I've used as a sort of indicator for London is Kew Gardens. And what kind of climate can we expect in Kew Gardens during the winter? So you won't be surprised to learn that winter, as far as the weather is concerned, is primarily the 3 months of December, January, and February. And the black lines we have on the graph here is showing us a sort of typical temperature that we'd expect through December, January, and February. So we can see there on average, it's around about 9 degrees Celsius. That's just into the high 40s Fahrenheit. So if we have a look at overnight temperatures, then we can see that minimum temperatures for the last 30 years show us that we would normally expect temperatures in Kew Gardens to be a lot lower than we should see during the day. Could we move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So we can see that really overnight temperatures, they're more around 2 degrees Celsius. That's into the high 30s Fahrenheit. So that's what the black line is showing us. But you can also see we've got a green line above the black line there, and what that indicates is that on average, 1 year in every five will be above that green line, and also the bottom green line. Again, we would expect on average 1 year in every five to be below that line. So you can see that we do see a variation in sort of the typical temperature overnight during December, January, and February. So really, it's going to be anywhere from around about freezing up to around about 4 or 5 degrees Celsius. So that kind of gives us this sort of typical overnight temperatures. So looking at air frost, which is a really good indicator for sort of cold nights, cold and frosty nights, and if we have seen rain or sleet or snow across London, then we are going to see ice as well on untreated pavements or roads or tracks or anything like that. So we can see that December and January typically have about 10 days where we'll see frost. February, not quite so many, but still. It's up there sort of above 8 days. So those are our, as you can see, December, January, February. That's why we count those as the winter months. That's when we see the coldest weather. It's when we see the frostiest weather, and also the iciest weather. It's not to say, though, that as we come out of winter into March, we will see less of that kind of weather, but it's still possible. So we just need to be aware of that as well. So moving on to the next slide, then. We can also see that as far as rainfall is concerned, the wettest months are November and December, but also January and February are not far behind. And as you would expect, sunshine with the winter solstice, December and January have the least amount of sunshine. So hence, that kind of ties in with why we see the sort of coldest weather as well. And then, as far as wind conditions are concerned, actually, February and March are the windiest months across the capital, followed by January, then December and November. So we're also seeing, along with the coldest weather through December, January, and February, we're also seeing some quite wet weather as well. We're seeing least amount of sunshine, and we're also seeing the windiest weather, particularly in February. So moving on to the next slide. Looking at the climate we've just talked about across London during the winter, I also wanted to look at the National Severe Weather Warning Service, and you may be aware of this service. And what it does is it covers 8 different types of weather, which you can see here on the right-hand side of the slide. So the ones that we are going to be most concerned during winter are going to be snow and ice, obviously, but also rain and wind, and also fog and perhaps thunderstorm. And we can issue weather warnings for London up to 7 days ahead. And what we do is we use this risk matrix that you can see at the top left there. So the green boxes, basically, that's what we call business as usual weather. So that would be like today, no concerns about any severe weather. But once we do start to have concerns, looking at the weather forecast, that we might see some severe weather, which might cause us some issues, well, we'll put a tick in the box. It might be a yellow box, or it might be an amber box, or it might be the red box. But we need to, put that tick in the box. And we can see at the bottom there that we have impact columns, which are low, medium, and high. And then underneath the risk matrix there, we can see what kind of disruption or issues we might be confronted by looking at the low, medium, and high impacts. And I'm going to cover that in a bit more detail in a future slide. But first of all, I just wanted to focus on the impact matrix. So on the left-hand side, we have the likelihood of impacts occurring, not the likelihood of severe weather occurring, but the likelihood of impacts occurring from that severe weather. So that can go from very low up to high. And then, as we just seen on the previous slide, we've got levels of impacts. So that can be very low, low, medium, or high. So what we do is we plot the likelihood of impacts occurring from the severe weather against the impacts expected, and that allocates the weather warning a colour, yellow, amber, or red. But also it's important to see where that tick is in the box, because you can see that for yellow and amber, it covers more than one impact column. And so that's why it's really, really important to see where is the tick in the box. And if we have a look at the next slide, then we can just see that in a little bit more detail. So on the left-hand side, we have a weather warning, high likelihood of low impact. So for many of our emergency responder services, this will be business as usual, or maybe business as usual plus. But on the right-hand side, we can see we've got, if we could just go back to that slide, please. The next, that's it, lovely, thank you. But as we can see here, we've got a tick, high impacts, but at very low likelihood. But here, there is a risk to life. And if we go up that column, as we get more certainty in the weather forecast, we may end up in high likelihood of high impact, which is red. And we only see red weather warnings issued maybe once or twice a year when we're talking about the severest of severe weather. So it's very, very important to see where is that tick in the impact matrix box, so that you have an understanding of the types of impacts that we may see from that severe weather. So going on to the next slide then. We've got a little bit more information here for the different parts of impacts. And that, this can be used at a glance, if you like. So lower impacts is the top part of this graphic. So as I say, it's sort of business as usual plus for emergency services. And we may see some low level disruption to many different types of travel and transport. Then going into medium impact, this is where we start to up the ante, and disruption to day-to-day routines and activities, and a short-term strain on emergency services. But then when we get into high impact, particularly as we go up the likelihood, we can start to see that this is top end of the impacts that we could see. So danger to life is obviously very, very important, and also puts a prolonged strain on emergency services, prolonged disruption to day-to-day life, particularly transport and travel. So moving on to the next slide then, please. This is how we might see a weather warning. And from a weather warning, you get all the information that is going to help you to understand how bad is the severe weather going to be. So at the top there, we have what is the weather element, or what is the weather we are issuing the weather warning for. So here it's snow and ice. Then also it's important to know, well, what times? And here we've got over one day, basically over a 24-hour period. And then we've got the headline. Okay, so we can see here that icy stretches are going to cause some disruption to travel, and also some snow as well. So then underneath that, we've got the expected impacts. So that would be taken from the low impacts that we have for snow and ice. On the left-hand side there, we have a map, and where the map areas are coloured up yellow, we can see these are the areas that are underneath, have the weather warning out for them. And then we have other information as well, the issue time, further details, and also that impact matrix, so that you can clearly see that this is a low impact level warning at the medium likelihood. So all the information is there. But in the run up to a severe weather event, it's more than likely that the weather warning will get will get updated on a daily basis as more and more information comes up and the weather forecast is firmed up as we head to the event. So if we move on to the next slide, you can see how you can view any weather warnings. So if you wish to receive them by email, then if you go to that web page there that's in blue, in the blue lettering, blue text there, then you can register for the weather warning service and you will receive them by email. Alternatively, you may want to view them on our the Met Office free weather app, or also on the desktop or mobile website. They're also available. So moving on to the next slide, please. So that covers weather warnings. The next item is looking at the WeatherReady campaign. Now, this runs all year round, and it supports public and partner agencies of the Met Office to prepare, to cope or respond and recover from severe weather. So next slide, please. So what it does is it is run with the Cabinet Office. It's hosted on the Met Office website, and it provides seasonal advice. And all that seasonal advice is available on that web page there at the bottom of this graphic. So moving on to the next slide, we can see that it's mainly focused on the summer and winter seasons. That's when we tend to see some of the most extreme and severe weather. So here we have an example of different pieces of information and advice that are available for the winter season. So for example, here we've got information about getting and checking your vehicle is ready for winter, and making alternative plans for your daily activities if severe weather affects sort of travel and transport. So there's lots and lots of information on there. And that is available at the website that's at the bottom of this graphic. So if we move on to the next slide, then my final piece of weather information is looking at the United Kingdom Health and Safety Agency cold weather alert. And these are for England only. And they run from the 1st of November through to 31st of March the following year. So we're currently in the cold weather alert season. And all the information about Met Office, about cold weather alerts are available from that Met Office page there at the bottom. And if you are in the health or care sector, then you can register to receive these cold weather alerts and also heat health alerts, which are available during the summer season. So on this final graphic then, you can see an example of a cold weather alert from January this year. And London is an area on its own. It's surrounded by the southeast of England, but also east of England. And here we can see that we're in a period of when we've got cold health alerts right across England, either at the yellow level or at the amber level. And on the right-hand side, I've given you information about those different color codes that are used for cold weather alerts. So you can see the difference between the yellow and amber there. The amber is obviously at a higher level of awareness and response than the yellow one. I should just point out that the red alert has never been issued. We've never had that severe cold spell of weather. So just hopefully that puts it in perspective. The graphic we have here on the left-hand side from January this year. If you want to find out any more information about the cold weather alerts, then the link at the bottom of this graphic in the blue text there will give you all the full description of the cold weather alerts and any other information that you may have about this service from UKHSA and also the Met Office. And that is my final graphic. Thank you very much indeed.